I still remember the exact sound of that door closing. It wasn't loud, just a quiet click, like someone gently turning off a lamp in an empty room. But that small sound broke something inside me forever. Rain was falling outside.
Steady. Soft.
Tapping on the roof like it wanted to comfort me. I was sitting at our old kitchen table, the wooden one covered in years of scratches from family dinners, spilled juice, and homework. My fingers were wrapped tightly around a thin white envelope from the doctor. The paper felt icy against my skin. He stood by the front door.
Coat already on.
Small black travel bag in his right hand. His face was calm, too calm, like he had already said goodbye in his mind many times before today. I looked up at him. I kept searching his eyes for anything. A little bit of regret. A tiny sign that he might stay. But he kept his eyes on the floor. I can't stay, he said. His voice was low and even.
No yelling. No anger.
Just deep, heavy tiredness. Not anymore. My chest felt tight, like someone was slowly squeezing the air out of me. The whole kitchen suddenly felt too small. The air became harder to breathe. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to walk over, hold his arm, beg him to sit back down with me. But my legs wouldn't move. All I could manage was a small, broken whisper. Today? Right now. He gave one single nod. I need to go. For a while. For a while. Those two words floated between us, like smoke. I already knew what they really meant. I had felt it coming for months, maybe even longer. The slow drifting apart. The growing silence. The way his hand no longer looked for mine when we lay in bed at night. Instead, he shifted the strap of his bag higher on his shoulder. I'll call when I get settled, he said.
I didn't reply.
My throat had closed up. Tears were waiting right behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet. Not in front of him. He reached for the doorknob. Cold, wet air slipped inside the moment he opened it. The smell of rain mixed with the faint trace of his aftershave, the same one he'd worn since our wedding day. For one tiny second he stopped, half-turned, like maybe he would say one last thing. Something soft. Something that would make this hurt less. But he didn't.
The door closed. Click.
And just like that, he was gone. I stayed sitting there for a very long time. The rain kept falling. The house kept making its small, familiar sounds. The fridge humming quietly. The wall clock ticking slowly in the hallway. Everything felt so normal. Everything looked the same. Except the most important person was missing. Finally, I looked down at the letter again. My hands were shaking so badly, the words blurred. I laid the envelope flat on the table. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold everything inside. The silence in the house was suddenly very loud. That was the day he left me, when I needed him most. But to really understand why it hurt so deep, I have to take you back. Back to the very beginning. Back to when everything felt warm and safe, like a thick blanket on a freezing night. We met in the summer of 1998. I was 23. He was 25. It happened in a small corner cafe just outside of town. I worked there part-time while I was studying to become a teacher. He came in every single morning, same order. Black coffee, plain donut.
No sugar. No cream.
Always simple. At first we barely spoke. Just a quick nod. A quiet thank you. Then one morning he looked up from his coffee and asked, "Do you ever get tired of making the same coffee over and over?" I laughed, a real laugh. Only when people forget to say thank you. He smiled, that small, crooked smile that I would come to love so much. Then thank you, he said. After that day we started talking. Little things at first. The weather. The town. Our dreams. He wanted to save enough money to buy a house one day. I wanted to teach kids how to read, how to fall in love with books the way I did. 3 months later, he asked me out to dinner. Nothing fancy, just pizza at the little place on Main Street with the red checkered tablecloths. We talked until the owner started stacking chairs. When he walked me home that night, he held my hand. It felt easy. It felt safe. We got married 1 year later under a big oak tree in Miller's Park. It was simple. No huge crowd. Just family, a few close friends, jars of wildflowers, and bright sunshine. I wore my mother's old white lace dress, a little yellowed with age. He wore a borrowed suit that was half a size too big. But when he looked at me and said, "I do," his voice was strong and clear. I believed every word. We moved into a little house on Maple Street soon after. 2 small bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, a backyard big enough for a garden. That first spring, I planted red roses along the fence. He helped me dig the holes, complaining about his back the whole time. We laughed until our sides hurt. Our first child came 2 years later.
A boy.
We named him Ethan. He had his father's dark, thoughtful eyes. The nights were long and sleepless, but so sweet. We took turns rocking him, singing quiet lullabies. In the mornings we sat together drinking coffee, just watching him sleep in his crib. 2 years after that, our daughter arrived, Emily. She had my smile and more energy than both of us combined. The house became full of noise, toys everywhere, crayons on the walls, little feet running up and down the hallway. It was messy. It was loud. It was perfect. He worked at the textile mill back then. Long hours. Sometimes double shifts. But every night, he came home with something small, a candy bar for the kids, a cheap bunch of flowers for me if he passed the market. Little things that quietly said, "I see you."
Ikare.
I stayed home with the children. I taught them letters and numbers at the kitchen table. I read bedtime stories every single night. I made sure dinner was ready when he walked through the door. It wasn't always easy. Money was tight. We argued sometimes. But we always found our way back to each other. Evenings on the front porch became our favorite time. Kids playing in the yard. Sun slowly going down. His arm around my shoulders. We talked about the future, college for the kids, maybe a bigger house someday, maybe a trip when we were old and gray. We dreamed together. But dreams don't always stay the same. Slowly, very slowly, things started to change. Not in one big explosion. Just small, quiet cracks that grew over time. Work at the mill became harder. Machines broke down more often. Orders slowed. Overtime stopped being extra. It became normal. He started coming home later. Quieter. Tired in a way that didn't go away even after sleeping. I noticed it. I just didn't know how to fix it. I'd ask softly, "Rough day?" He'd nod. "Yeah." And that was the end of the conversation. Money became tighter. Bills came faster than the paychecks. I learned how to stretch every meal, soup made from bones, and whatever vegetables were left in the fridge. The kids never complained. They were used to it. Then Ethan got sick. Not a normal cold. Something deeper in his lungs.
Doctors. Tests.
Medicine we could barely pay for. I spent nights sitting next to his bed, wiping his hot forehead with a cool cloth. Fear lived inside me every single minute. He picked up even more hours to cover the bills. I hardly saw him. When he was home, he was too exhausted to talk. We whispered so we wouldn't wake the kids. Ethan finally got better after 3 long months. Relief came over us like cool rain after a long, hot summer. But the weight of those months had left marks. On him, on me, on us. Around that same time I started feeling tired too. Not regular tired. Deep down in the bones tired. My joints ached. Mornings became very hard. At first I told myself it was just stress. Just age. Just being a mom. But it never got better. One morning I tried to lift Emily, and pain shot through my arms so badly I almost dropped her. I went to the doctor alone. More tests. More waiting. More worry. The diagnosis came quietly. A chronic condition. Not going to kill me, but it would stay with me forever. Medicine every day. Rest when I could get it. Help around the house. Life changes. I told him that evening, sitting at the same scratched kitchen table. The doctor says it's serious. I'm going to need support.
He looked at me for a long time.
Then he said, "We'll manage." But his voice sounded far away. Flat.
Distant.
That was when the real distance began. That flat "we'll manage" stayed in my ears for weeks. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't mean. But it felt empty, like words said only because something had to be said. After that evening, the small changes became bigger ones.
He stopped asking about my day. He stopped asking how the pain was.
When I came home from the pharmacy with another bag of pills, he'd glance at it once, and then look away. No. How much this time? No, need help carrying that. Just silence. I try to keep things normal for the children. Mornings still started the same way. I made oatmeal or scrambled eggs even when my hands hurt. Ethan would sit at the table drawing spaceships. Emily would chatter about her teacher and the new girl in class. I smiled and nodded and said the right things. But inside I felt like I was holding my breath all the time. He'd come downstairs later, hair still wet from the shower, shirt already tucked in for work. He'd pour coffee into his travel mug.
Kiss the tops of the kids' heads.
Sometimes he'd kiss my cheek too, quick, automatic, like checking a box. Then he was gone until evening. Evenings were harder. He'd walk in around 7, sometimes 8. The smell of machine oil and sweat on his clothes. He'd drop his lunchbox by the sink, wash his hands, and sit at the table. I'd serve dinner, usually something simple like spaghetti or baked chicken with rice. We'd eat mostly in quiet. The children filled some of the space with stories from school. But once they finished and ran off to play or do homework, the silence came back. One night I tried to talk. Really talk. The kids were in bed. Dishes were done. We were sitting on the couch with the TV on low, some nature show about mountains. Neither of us was watching. I turned to him. I miss us, I said softly. I miss how we used to talk. Really talk. He kept looking at the screen. After a long pause he said, I'm tired, Sarah. Work is killing me. The overtime, it never ends. I know, I whispered. I see how hard you're working. But I'm scared too. This thing with my health, it's not going away. And I feel like I'm losing you at the same time. He finally looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed. Not from crying, from exhaustion. I'm doing everything I can, he said. The bills don't stop. The medicine doesn't stop. Ethan's checkups don't stop. What do you want me to do? Quit my job? No, I said quickly. I want to feel like we're still a team. He rubbed his face with both hands. We are, he said. But it sounded like he was trying to convince himself, more than me. After that night, things got quieter still. We stopped trying to have those conversations. It was easier to pretend everything was fine than to keep hitting the same wall. The pain in my joints got worse with the coming winter. Cold air made everything stiffen up. Some mornings I woke up and it took 10 full minutes just to sit up in bed. I'd sit on the edge, breathing slowly, waiting for the worst of it to pass. He'd already be gone by then. One afternoon, I tried to clean the kitchen floor. I got down on my knees with a sponge. Bad idea. Halfway through, pain stabbed through my hips, so sharp I gasped. I stayed there on the floor for almost 20 minutes, tears running down my face, waiting for it to ease. When it finally did, I crawled to the couch and lay there until the children came home from school. Emily found me first. Mommy, why are you on the couch like that? I forced a smile. Just resting, sweetie. Long day. She climbed up beside me and patted my arm. You need medicine? Yeah, I said. Can you bring Mommy's pill bottle from the counter? She did, so carefully, like it was made of glass. Ethan came in next, dropped his backpack, and sat on my other side. They both stayed quiet, just being there. That was the sweetest thing and the saddest. My children were learning how to take care of me too young. When he got home that night, I told him what happened. Not in an accusing way. Just the facts. I couldn't finish cleaning. The pain was too bad. I was on the floor for a while. He stood in the doorway, still in his coat. Did you call anyone? No, I said. I waited it out. He nodded slowly. I'll mop tomorrow, he said. Then, he went upstairs to change. He did mop the next day, Saturday. But he did it fast, like it was another chore on a list. No talking. No checking if I was okay. Just the sound of the mop slapping the floor and water sloshing in the bucket. I watched from the table. My heart felt heavy. This was the man who once carried me piggyback through the park when my shoes hurt on our third date. Now, he couldn't look at me when I was hurting. Money kept getting tighter. One evening I opened the mail and found the second warning from the electric company. If we didn't pay by the end of the month, they'd shut it off. I sat at the table staring at the letter until the words swam. When he came home, I showed it to him. He read it. His jaw tightened. "I'll pick up extra shifts next week," he said. "You're already doing 6 days," I said quietly. "I'll do 7 if I have to." He sounded angry, not at me, but at the situation. At life. At whatever force kept pushing us down. That weekend we barely spoke. He worked Saturday. Sunday, he slept most of the day. I took the kids to the park, so he could rest. They ran around the playground. I sat on a bench with a thermos of tea, watching them, trying not to cry. When we got home, he was awake. He'd made grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner. It was the first thing he'd cooked in months. We ate together, all 4 of us. For a little while, it almost felt normal again. But after the kids went to bed, he sat at the table with a beer. I sat across from him. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. "For what?" "For everything. For not being here more. For not knowing how to fix this." I reached across and touched his hand. "I don't need you to fix it all. I just need you here. With me. With us." He looked down at my hand on his. "I'm trying," he whispered. But trying wasn't the same as being there. Spring came slowly. The roses in the backyard started to bud again. I could walk a little better some days. The medicine helped a bit. But the emotional distance didn't shrink. He started staying out later, even on days he didn't work overtime. He'd say he was meeting a friend from work, or going for a drive to clear his head. I didn't ask too many questions. I was afraid of the answers. One night, he came home at almost 11. The kids were asleep. I was in the living room with a book I wasn't really reading. He stood in the doorway. "I'm sorry I'm late." "It's okay," I lied. He took off his coat, hung it up. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "I feel like I'm drowning, Sarah." I set the book down. "What do you mean?" "Every day. Work. Bills. Your health. The kids. It's like I can't breathe. I keep thinking if I just work harder, if I just push more, it'll get better. But it doesn't." I stood up slowly, walked over to him. "I feel that way too," I said. "But running away from it won't help." "I'm not running," he said. But his voice cracked a little. He went to bed early that night. I stayed up, sitting in the dark living room, listening to the house settle, wondering how much longer we could keep going like this. The arguments started again, small ones at first, over silly things. Who forgot to buy milk? Why the trash wasn't taken out? But underneath every argument was the same thing: fear. Fear that we were slipping away from each other and didn't know how to stop it. One evening I found an empty beer can in the garage. Then another the next week. Then 2 more. He'd never been much of a drinker before. Just a beer or 2 on weekends. Now it was becoming something else. I didn't say anything at first. I was afraid it would push him further away. But one night I couldn't hold it in. "You're drinking more," I said quietly while we were getting ready for bed. He froze with his shirt half off. "It helps me sleep," he said. "It's not helping us." He turned to face me. His eyes were tired, angry, sudden, all at once. "What do you want from me, Sarah? I'm killing myself out there every day. For you, for the kids, for this house. And it's still not enough." Tears came then, hot and fast. "I don't want more money," I said. "I want you. The man I married. The one who held me when I was scared. The one who laughed with me on the porch." He looked away. "I don't know where that guy went," he said softly. That was the last real conversation we had for a long time. After that, we lived side by side like roommates. Polite, careful, distant. He slept on the couch some nights, said the bed hurt his back. I knew it wasn't his back. I started sleeping with the bedroom door open so I could hear if the kids needed me. Also, so I could hear if he came home late. I hated myself for it, for turning into someone who listened for footsteps. The garden started blooming again. Roses opened, red and perfect. I sat on the back steps one afternoon watching bees move from flower to flower. My hands hurt less that day. I thought about how beautiful it was. and how lonely it felt to enjoy it alone. That's when I knew something had to change. Either we found our way back, or we didn't. But I never imagined the breaking point would come on that rainy afternoon. The doctor's letter arrived on a Tuesday. I had gone for what I thought was a routine checkup. They did more scans, more blood work. The doctor sat me down and spoke in that calm, careful voice doctors use when the news isn't good. The inflammation is worse than last time. We need to do surgery to repair the damage in your hip and knee. It's not emergency, but we can't wait much longer. 6 to 8 weeks at most.
Inådde like I understood.
I asked questions. Recovery time. Risks.
Cost.
But inside my head was just one thought repeating over and over. I can't do this alone. I drove home slowly. Rain started halfway there, light at first, then heavier. By the time I pulled into the driveway, it was pouring. I sat in the car for a few minutes, watching water run down the windshield, trying to find the right words to tell him. When I walked inside, the house was quiet. Kids still at school. He was home early for once, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold. I set my purse down, took the letter out, placed it in front of him. He looked at it, then at me. What is it? Surgery, I said. They want to do it soon. 6 to 8 weeks. I'll need help after. A lot of help. He stared at the paper without touching it. Then he looked up. His face was pale. Eyes empty. Okay, he said. But the word came out like it weighed 100 pounds. I sat across from him. I'm scared, I admitted. I need you. Really need you. Not just for the money or the house.
For me.
For us. He didn't answer right away. He just kept staring at the letter like it was a bomb about to go off. After a long silence, he spoke. Quiet. Almost a whisper. I can't do this anymore, Sarah. My heart stopped. What? I can't. The pressure.
The fear.
Every day I wake up thinking about how much more I have to carry. And now this. I feel like I'm going to break. Tears burn my eyes. But that's why we need each other. We're supposed to carry it together. He shook his head slowly. I've been trying. For years. But I'm empty. There's nothing left. I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away, but he didn't hold on either. His fingers stayed limp. Please, I whispered. Don't do this now. Not when I'm about to go through surgery. Not when the kids need their dad here. He closed his eyes.
I'm sorry. I really am.
But staying would just make it worse. For all of us. He stood up, walked to the bedroom. I followed, legs shaking. He pulled a duffel bag from the closet, started folding clothes, slow, careful folds like he was trying not to wake anyone. I stood in the doorway, watching, unable to move. Don't go, I said.
Please.
We can figure this out. Therapy. Time off.
Anything.
He paused with a shirt in his hands. I've thought about all of that. I've thought about nothing else for months. But I can't breathe here anymore.
Tears fell then. Silent. Hot.
I wiped them away with the back of my hand. He zipped the bag, picked it up, walked past me down the stairs. I followed like a shadow. At the front door, he stopped, turned to me one last time. I'll send money when I can, he said. I'll call the kids. I promise. I couldn't speak. My throat was closed tight. He opened the door. Rain rushed in, cold and loud. One last look. Then he stepped out.
The door closed. Click.
I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, arms around my knees, sobbing quietly so the neighbors wouldn't hear. The house felt huge, empty,
cold.
That was the moment everything broke. The moment he left when I needed him most. The first few days were a blur. I barely slept. The bed felt too big, too cold. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, replaying that click of the door over and over. The children came home from school. I told them Daddy had to go away for work. A long job out of town. They asked questions. When is he coming back? Why didn't he say goodbye? I answered as best I could, soft lies wrapped in smiles. Inside I was falling apart. Friends started calling. Neighbors brought food. Casseroles.
Soup. Bread.
They asked how I was. I said fine every time. They didn't believe me, but they didn't push. Surgery day came faster than I expected. I woke up early, made breakfast for the kids, hugged them extra long before the school bus came. My sister drove me to the hospital. She stayed the whole time, held my hand before they wheeled me in. "You're strong," she said. "You've always been strong." I woke up groggy, pain everywhere, but managed. The nurses were kind. They gave me ice chips, adjusted pillows, told me I did well. Recovery at home was slow. Crutches, walker, pills on a schedule. The kids helped bringing water, fetching blankets, reading to me when I was too tired to read myself. Winter, small moments, a shared laugh, a hand on my shoulder when I was tired, a thank you that meant more than words. We talked, really talked for the first time in years, about the fear, the pressure, the mistakes.
No blame.
Just truth. One evening on the porch, watching the sun set, he took my hand. I let him. "I love you," he said. "Still. Always." I squeezed his hand. "I love you too. But love isn't enough by itself anymore. We have to show it. Every day." He nodded. "I will." Years have passed since that rainy day. The house is still on Maple Street. The roses still bloom every spring, brighter now, because we both tend them. The children are older. Ethan is in high school, dreaming of engineering. Emily wants to be a writer. They remember the hard years, but they also remember the healing. He never left again. We never pretended it was perfect.
Some days are still hard. Bills come.
Pain flares. Old fears whisper. But we face them together now. We sit on the porch, most evenings. His arm around me. Kids inside doing homework or laughing at something on their phones. I look at the garden. The roses. The new flowers we planted side by side. I think about that door closing. That click. The emptiness that followed. And I think about how pain can teach you things love alone never could. Strength you didn't know you had. Forgiveness deeper than you thought possible. The quiet courage to start over. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. If I could tell my younger self anything, it would be this. Even when the person you need most walks away, you keep going. You hold your children close. You plant flowers even when your hands hurt. Winter. Small moments. A shared laugh. A hand on my shoulder when I was tired. A thank you that meant more than words. We talked, really talked for the first time in years. About the fear. The pressure. The mistakes.
No blame.
Just truth. One evening on the porch, watching the sun set, he took my hand. I let him. "I love you," he said. "Still. Always." I squeezed his hand. "I love you too. But love isn't enough by itself anymore. We have to show it. Every day." He nodded. "I will." Years have passed since that rainy day. The house is still on Maple Street. The roses still bloom every spring, brighter now, because we both tend them. The children are older. Ethan is in high school, dreaming of engineering. Emily wants to be a writer. They remember the hard years, but they also remember the healing. He never left again. We never pretended it was perfect.
Some days are still hard. Bills come.
Pain flares. Old fears whisper. But we face them together now. We sit on the porch, most evenings. His arm around me. Kids inside doing homework or laughing at something on their phones. I look at the garden. The roses. The new flowers we planted side by side. I think about that door closing. That click. The emptiness that followed. And I think about how pain can teach you things love alone never could. Strength you didn't know you had. Forgiveness deeper than you thought possible. The quiet courage to start over. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. If I could tell my younger self anything, it would be this. Even when the person you need most walks away, you keep going. You hold your children close. You plant flowers even when your hands hurt. You let time do its slow, gentle work. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes the person comes back.
Changed.
Humbled. Ready. Not because you waited, but because you kept living. I smile now when I remember that rainy day. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it taught me I could survive it. And that survival turned into something stronger than before. Life isn't perfect, but it's ours. And in the quiet moments, when the house is full of small sounds, laughter, footsteps, the hum of the fridge, I feel something close to peace. That's enough. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that stay with you forever. And comment below, have you ever lost someone you loved?